Sarah Taylor, and I'm a landscape architect from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Native plants, for me, as a theme that could run in the garden, probably started 35 years ago. And at the time, it was difficult to find these plants. As I was in the industry, the nursery design build industry, and I wanted to use more native plants in my landscape, the suppliers, the people who were buying the plants in, there always seemed to be more non-native than native. And so there was a group of us who were a part of a movement connected with the White Dog Cafe, which is a sort of a what we would call a green chamber of commerce was the concept. So there's these blocks around the country that have focus on green industries, and not green as in just landscapes or plants, but really how can we have more caring businesses and practices that work with the harmony of nature and with natural processes, realizing that sustainability is a balance of economics, social, and environmental needs. They're all come together. So the White Dog Cafe, through that we became the building block known as the landscape building block. And there was a group of us. There were conservationists, there were plant growers, there were designers, and we all decided we would start holding the torch and moving forward with the native plant bit. And we started and moved forward. And it's exciting because, like the tour that happened yesterday with, all the 75 people that came through from, if not maybe 100 to 150 mile radius, that everyone's beginning to get the value and purpose of native plants, which was most importantly, the value was identified when Doug Tallamy did his research. He's an entomologist, did his research on his own suburban landscape and made the realization that if you only have Asian plants on your property, you have no native insects. And if you don't have native insects, it's the building block to a healthy environment, then you don't have the fauna that supports it. So you need native flora for native fauna. So the skin of the earth has this ecological vegetation system that's evolved over millennial, and it's a very delicate balance. And for things to work in balance, the native fauna needs the food of the native flora to eat. So with Doug's work and this movement for the native plants, it's evolved into much more than just native plants, but actually native communities. So when I came back from traveling around the world for 2 years, I had the opportunity to engage with a lot of different types of community. And one of the hopes had been is that I create an import business that would create a product that could provide a revenue into this community that I had liked in Asia so that they could have more economic stability. Came back to the United States, fell in love with landscape design. Off I went into the design build world. And after about 5-6 years of that, I started creating these complex charts of, how I'm connecting with customers, and, where am I spending my time when I'm connecting with customers. And there was always a piece off to the side that said education. Another piece, when I came back into the country, it was really important to me to be able to give of myself in service to my community. So I started volunteering in the township, and the lovely thing about Pennsylvania is volunteers can really in Pennsylvania engage and support land development processes, because that's done at the township level. So my voice could have impact. And in that process, I met Jack Masseau and Kay Masseau. Jack and Kay at that time had been spending about 12 years trying to pass a particular ordinance to protect tree and forest systems. And it wasn't going anywhere because there wasn't any science behind it within the township. We ended up when I came on board, we ended up having a new computer system that came on basically online, that more people were able to utilize, that would take the inventory of the natural resources and create an overlay on the computer. And it was called a GIS system, Graphic Information System. And you could do it as a very large scale. And through that you could quickly inventory and analyze your woodland systems and qualities of your woodland systems. So this is a project I worked with Jack and Kay, and we spent hours and hours and hours doing this. And at the same time I'm doing this design build, and next thing you know, I'm sitting at the dinner table with Jack and Kay trying to figure out what Margot really wants to do when she gets older. Because I wasn't being totally sustained by selling my design. I often didn't care how much I sold. It was much more, what's the quality of the design? Jack is a scientist, Kay's an educator. And as we sat around the table, it became very apparent that Margot needed to get her master's in education and take that voice, which I had seen as a part of my process of trying to sell a landscape to a customer, that voice that wanted to educate what was right to the environment and take it on into the community. So with the two of them and the timing of my indecision, it was just a beautiful transition into a whole new chapter of my life to add that on. And Jack was absolutely beautiful. Lost Jack a couple of weeks ago, and he has been such an incredible influence in terms of preservation of open space and resources in this township. I'm about to draft up a special thank you for Jack that will get included in the township newsletter. He was one of the most selfless people I ever met. And so what I learned is that you can have this passion, you can give back to your community, and you don't have to throw into that mix ego of self-advancement. So how to just give back. And education has become one of the greatest ways to do that.
Knowing some of the artwork that you've done in ceramics and how you're connecting it to the environment, can you talk a little bit about the art that you've created that is in collaboration with the environmental work that you do? So like how you bridge those, and maybe just a little bit about that work.
Sure. And it's fun because these questions are really helping me think of other dimensions of what I might be doing and not having recognized it. So that's neat. With the garden art, the concept is that just a bed of vegetation sometimes is not appealing, not interesting enough. And I look at garden magazines and I see that the structure of a bench or an arbor or a walkway or a container is like the focus of a picture in the garden magazine, and then the vegetation is the filler. So the thought started evolving on how to add more whimsy structural elements into the landscape, and being inspired by floral themes and forms, and expanding into, you know, what I call a make-believe flower shape and form, in part because I haven't been able to physically create it to look like the real flower or a real flower. So make something that's artificial. And then I like to make them tall. You know, how high can we get them? I want them to be like these, you know, 20-foot things, and starting realizing how difficult that was to do structurally. So much more involved behind it. So I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now I'm back down to, you know, maybe what, 18 inches to 2 feet in height. It's a compact thing. And color and form and whimsy. You know, we had a tour here the other day on the property, and this woman pops on the property and talks about, oh, this is so exciting. There's whimsical art in here. This is what I like. And maybe it's that joy. You know, I had played with the idea of partaking in a camp this past summer where we would work with kids and we would make the different elements of these totems, and then we'd put them together. And half the fun was if you get these kind of pieces and those kind of pieces and another kind of piece, and then at the end we all just put them together into an art form. That's been a lot of fun, where I've had a bunch of random pieces on the table and everybody gets to grab a piece and we all assemble the item together. So there could be real opportunity to expand that type of community outreach program. And then if I break any of my pieces, they become mosaic options. You know, there's always that next level recycling, reuse. I like to start a lecture with that shot taken from space looking back at Earth. Earth is a single cell, and everything in the atmosphere of the planet supports life on the planet. So the environment is a component of the social, which is the human component, and the economic, which is this financial piece that we've created that works together for everything to survive. So there's you know, I consider myself an earth worker, where I want to keep giving a voice to the earth, or for the earth, so people understand that you can't have prosperous society without a functioning environment, and you're not going to have an economically prosperous environment without, society without a functioning environment. They are interconnected. So with kids, and one of the neat activities that I like to do with design students, and even with a green book club, or, you know, a group that's getting together that all seems to have this earth connection, is ask, what's your first memory, childhood memory, of being outside in nature? And it's incredible, this pattern that everybody has about, oh, we used to play in the woods for hours, or we used to play in the stream for hours, or, you know, we used to climb trees all the time. And it was unbridled access. There wasn't any fear. And there was a connection on being in the land, on the landscape. And most importantly, without structure. And that's what youth needs. They need to, as they come outside, give them the basket, all your electronic toys go in that basket, and you come out and you interact and you play. And whatever they find and whatever they discover is just absolutely perfect for that place and time, to give them that connection to the land and to the landscape. So I talked a little bit earlier with Natalie specifically about one of my mentors, which was a gentleman named Ed Silcox, who really believed in connecting learning and discipline of learning to the landscape. And he did this at the middle school level, at 7th grade, to watersheds. And the students, all day, all year, the students learned in context to the environment, to watersheds. We would be taking field trips. I did my student teaching with them. We would take 60 field trips a year, constantly outside, running scientific experiments, analyzing that work, as well as, getting comfortable with the context of history connected to the landscape, to the context of the environment and how the environment functions, and then the role of the economic processes connected to the landscape. For example, waterways were the major transportation systems opposed to our roadways now, looking at those differences. So if we can't function without the healthy skin of this planet, and this idea that we can is just tomfoolery. It's not being conscious and aware that they're integrated, and we need to constantly bring back and reconnect and have opportunities to learn in the land connected to our school systems. But we need to be less afraid. We need to have free play and less structure. I used to run an environmental club in the afternoon of a full day of school for these kids, and I was instructed by the parent organization that ran the program, or sponsored it. Be sure there's a pedagogical purpose and function and focus of every lesson. And these kids would come out into the field after being in school from 7 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon, with one 30-minute break in the middle of the day. And they're not hearing anymore. We're unable to corral them. And finally I would just go, free time, do whatever you want. And we just turn around and watch them have fun and playing. So they're dipping their hands in the water, they're pulling up rocks, they're actually looking for the insects, they're trying to capture a snake, they're trying to get crayfish. That experience will bring so much down the road when they find themselves sitting on a panel of volunteers governing land use and protecting water quality, because they'll remember having protected those water resources, having been able to put their hand in the stream, and they'll be upset all of a sudden in that adult role if you can't put your hand in the stream because the water quality is so bad. We've done something, because they will have had that root memory.